She may not have permissions if she's a guest. Go under people.
Well, we did yesterday, we had it all set up.
Select hers.
Let's see.
And make an attendee.
Now let's see if that works.
Oh,
There you go.
cancel. There you go.
Alright, there you
Okay.
go. I just had to do it a different way.
Perfect.
Now I'm trying to get rid of the,
If you go under view. Speaker.
Hi, Donna.
Oh, hello. Is she remote?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Select speaker.
well, I wanna just, take everything off of there.
They were,
Yesterday we had it,
yeah, they were
So
supposed to
there
get
was no-
some
Maybe that
PDF
focus on
weather this
content.
morning, so
Yeah.
Doug set up so she could do
Oh,
Teams.
perfect.
At the, almost to the bottom there.
gallery off of there. Well,
Might be as good as it is, but there was a focus on content. I don't know if that would switch it. Down one more.
okay,
There you go.
all right. Well, Michelle, we are ready for you. And I have printed the packets of information, so if you wanna just kinda let me know when you want them passed out, I will do that for you.
Perfect.
And we have, just so you know, we have Board of Supervisors, Kyle Stecker, Carter Knapp, Joshua Wachter, and Roger Jarks, County Auditor Tammy Eden, and our Wellmark Insurance, kind of the insurance as far as getting people entered and taking people off, kind of making sure that everyone is, all of our employees are insured. Part of our HR department, that's Donna Nielsen is here.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for inviting me to your meeting, and my apologies that the weather has not cooperated with me, so I could get up there and meet you all in person. We'll try and get at something, but for now, Doug thought it was probably best, let's just go ahead and do this via Teams meeting. So, I'm here this morning to kind of give you, again, this is the initial renewal information, this is not final. We should have final at the beginning of April. So this is just kind of where we're at today. If nothing changes significantly one way or the other, it will renew, this will be the final renewal. But once I have that information, I will let you know, I will share that information with Doug. So Doug, if you want to go ahead and just pass out that executive annual report.
Sure, I'm doing that right now.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
This is, just so everyone knows, we typically can run this report once a year. It is an overwhelming amount of information that's in this full report. So typically what we like to do is just point out some highlights, talk about some things, just kind of provide you with an overall review of what's happened with the claims, enrollment. It breaks it down by so many different ways and topics that I just pulled out a few pages that I kind of want to go through and explain to you kind of where the group is sitting and what's seen over the past several months. So if you want to look at what is what's numbered page 3, let me there's on your screen too. So if you take a look at this, this is just really an overall insight and graph of the plan's performance. So right now, the current allowed PMPY, which is per member per year, is $10,955. That is up 0.6% from the prior year. And it's 56.8% greater than what we would consider a benchmark. The benchmark is based on your group's demographics. So the PMPY is 56.8% higher than where it should be based on your group's demographics. So to break that down, if you look down at the last line where it says total over to the right, so prior year -2 would be 2020. Prior year -1, 2021, prior year 22, and then the current year. You can see how that cost is increasing year over year. Now, in 2021, it actually decreased a little bit from 2020. In 22, we had a huge jump. Into 23, we have another pretty significant jump of 12.6%. Again, against the benchmark of $6,988. So a variance of 6.8%. So that's where we see your group performing at today. And please, as I go through this, stop me with any questions. Just, I don't know, Doug, since I can't see you guys, interrupt me, it's fine.
We will,
I will not
Michelle.
Okay, thank you. I will not take offense to it at all. So please, since I can't see you, I can't see if anyone needs my attention, and my apologies there.
The driver of this,
Just a second, Michelle. Roger Jarks has a question.
yeah, the driver of the increase is just over out-of-pocket cost for the insurance company, correct?
The driver of the increase, Michelle, is what?
We will get to that in a second, if that's okay, Roger?
Later in the report.
I can't hear anyone.
Yes.
Yes, that's fine. That is adequate.
Okay. Not trying to put you off, but I have a lot more details surrounding that. This is just kind of high level. But I would have the same question. So if you want to go to the next page, which is page 7, and I have it up on the screen. There are also some good things going on land. I mean, there are a lot of things going in the right direction. As a group, you get 42.3% in health care by going to providers, and based on our provider discounts, we negotiated with the providers, so physicians and hospitals. The in-network utilization was 100% in the current period. We put a benchmark at 97%. So all of your member claims have been in-network utilization, which is great. Members are taking full advantage of our network discounts, which you couldn't ask for more, from your employees. So I think that's great. So I wanted to make sure that all of you were aware of that. Every once in a while we run into where somebody's not, and then, we have different discussions on, well, how can we encourage that behavior? You go to page, what's numbered 8. I put up on the screen. And again, I'm going to summarize this big chart. But if you look, for a period, so the claim period we're in right now, 71.8% of the members had no claims or claims less than $2,501. Based on that, that's when you can start to look at, okay, if we want to change the deductibles, if we want to change the out-of-pocket, how many people does that really affect? What percentage of our members? So if you find yourself in a position thinking about, do we want to do that? What are we looking at? those are kind of some numbers to look at. Because 28.2% of the membership accounted for 94.4% of the claims. And that's something I'm gonna show you here in a little bit when we get to the next section, after we get over these highlights. And just to kind of show you what's going on here, in the prior period, there were 4 members with claims greater than $100,000, and that was 47.2% of the claims paid. In the current period, there were 3 members over $100,000, and they had almost the same percentage of claims paid at 44.5%. So we have a lot of high claimants. And if you look, there were really what they accounted for were claims over $500,000, accounted for 40.9% of your claims. The benchmark we would expect is 3.5% of claims. So if you look at the bottom right hand of that graph. That may help answer your question too, Roger, and I'll get into more details, but that's what's causing this. You want to look at page 13. This will break it down even a little bit more as to where the significant increases are we're looking at. It's surrounding chemo and aftercare, and then a category called bones, muscles, and ligaments. The chemo and aftercare conditions accounted for 30% of the allowed charges. Bones, muscles, and ligaments accounted for 13%. And the chemo and aftercare is really where the large spend is right now. It increased 250% from the prior period, and it's about 2,000% higher than what we would expect. Fortunately or unfortunately, I mean, that is something that none of us have any control over. It's the conditions of your membership, and hopefully that chemo and aftercare does its job for those members. If you go to the next page, which is page 15, this breaks it down a little bit more. So it will tell you your inpatient costs were 5.1% of the total allowed charges. Inpatient actually decreased, and it was below the benchmark. Your admits per thousand decreased, and they were below the benchmark. And your allowed per admit decreased and was below the benchmark. So again, your high cost claimants that are really building up this PMPY that's happening right now overall that you can see. Any questions on any of those pages before we get into some additional information? And while we're looking for questions, Doug, if you want to pass out the high cost claimant summary.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you.
Sure.
Sure.
There you guys are.
No, you're fine.
Okay, we got that passed out. I don't believe we have any questions, Michelle.
Perfect. Thank you. So I think this is going to answer a lot of your questions. Where are these claims coming from? What's driving them? If you take a look at the first page and second page, when you get halfway down to the second page, all of those claimants are above your current individual stock loss of $35,000. But the remainder of them are not. So you're picking up, all of that liability. Now, obviously, anything above the $35,000 right now, that is your individual stop loss, and that is where Wellmark picks up. But you can see, your top two claimants, they are still active members, so we expect them to continue into next year. Both of them are well above $500,000, and that's as of now. We don't know where their claims will finish for this year. Any questions on any of those? And we do, for HIPAA reasons, provide scrambled IDs.
I don't believe there's any questions, Michelle.
Okay. As we go through the next, section, before we get to that, if you would like to pass out, the self-funded initial renewal rate page, we can talk about that. And while you're doing that, what I just want to take note of, as we get farther into this, if we were to look at a $50,000 individual stop loss, which I've provided numbers that we'll go through, it would involve an additional $183,000 worth of liability to Kossuth County. But keeping that in mind, I also want to show you the potential savings in that from your fixed cost. So
You
just
repeat
kind of
that
keep that
number?
in mind. What's that?
The
Yeah.
question, would you please repeat that statement, Michelle?
Yeah.
Yes, $183,000 worth of additional liability, just in the claims we're looking at right here on this high cost claimant, to go from a $35,000 stop loss to a $50,000 stop loss. Because really what you're doing is picking up an additional $15,000 for everybody above that $35,000 threshold.
And the percentage of people that went over the 35 last year?
You'll have to repeat that, Doug.
The question was, do you know the percentage of people that went over 35,000? The number would have been 15 or so, 15 out of 100,
Yep, 15
15 out of 100,
and 20.
120, thank you.
131, I think. Yep.
Okay.
Just,
Some people even hit the 50. So, this first person is 38,000. So really, you're only picking up an additional $3,000 in liability there.
Right. You're not picking up the full 15,000.
just, dollars over
Right.
35. Michelle,
Until we get to 50. Go ahead.
just so I'm passing out the correct sheet, you wanted the initial rates, is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks.
So let's take a look at that now. I just wanted to kind of put that side note out there as we go through some additional numbers. So we work looking back and saying, where did you get that number? That's how I'm getting that. So let's go down to this page. Yeah, the self-funded initial renewal rate. So again, this is initial, this is not final. We should have final the beginning of April. But where we're at right now is 131, and again, that's 131 contracts. So 100 family contracts, 31 single contracts. I don't know what that equates to in members. I don't have the census in front of me.
300 and, Michelle, it's 330 or so members.
Okay, so really then, the 15 people over 35,000 is, out of the 300 and however many members. Because that accounts for not only contract holders, but dependents and spouses. So to clarify that earlier question, because these are contracts, not members, that we're looking at right now. 31 single and 100 family contracts. The individual stop loss right now, like I said, is at 35,000. Based on that, you have your fee per contract. The aggregate stop loss is $8.39. You have your administrative fees, and we'll look at that breakout in detail. I have that broke out for you in a. You have your admin fees for your PBM, so that's, your PBM would be, for your prescription drugs. We have access to a carrier that provides that, which is CVS. And you do not have a consulting fee, but it's always shown on here if you would. And that would be if you had an outside consultant. With your total admin fees and your network access fees, so accessing the Wellmark network to obtain that savings of over 42% in claims that you have been able to do, that on an annual basis is just costing you $10,000. So what we're projecting for claims is $3.9 million with claims and fees. So those shown then are your estimated suggested rates. Now again, you're self-funded, so you set the rate. We are just suggesting basing it on future claims projection and fixed fees, where we feel you would want to fund those rates. Now again, completely up to you guys. Then we add in your attachment points. Based on the attachment points and the stop loss fees and your admin fees, we always also make a suggestion on the max liability to fund. So those are the rates provided on the max liability to fund at $4.4 million. That is a rate increase of 13.39% for this year. Again, that's the initial suggested renewal. We do not know what the final is yet. If you look at that, and based on what we're looking at for the county's trend right now is running 18.93%. Wellmark's experience trend is 7.64%. So based on those two factors and the claims increase of 12.86% for 2022 is how the 13.39% will arrive. Questions on that?
Would you please repeat the Kossuth trend and the Wellmark trend, those figures?
You bet. You bet. The Kossuth trend is 18.93%. The Wellmark experience trend is 7.64%.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Other questions on any of those numbers or how
So
they
you
were
come up
derived?
with the 13.9.
The question was, how did the 13.9%, if you would explain that?
13.39%.
Okay,
But that would be,
That's the suggested, or excuse me, the initial renewal increase.
that's the percentage over last year's
so that,
initial, would it be initial or final, Michelle?
This is initial, so the initial renewal increase is 13.39%. We should have the final at the beginning of April.
But that 13.39% is, it's an increase over what we currently have, our final rates that you gave us last year.
Correct. So these initial renewal rates, if you put that against last year's final rate, will be 13.39% increase.
So what you're telling us, we're short last year on what we should increase.
Well, that's our self-insurance,
Right.
so we need to,
Well, we're gonna-
she doesn't know what we do with our self-insurance. This is just Wellmark's
Their suggestion.
information.
But to stay whole,
Correct.
we're short. We're gonna be short this year on our fund balance compared to the year before.
Well, that's another discussion,
Yeah.
so.
Okay, any additional questions on that from me? Because Doug, you're the only one I can hear.
Yes, I do not believe there's any other questions.
Okay, would you like to pass up then the fixed cost review?
I will.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, and it doesn't sideways on me in my presentation, so I'll just go with the paper, the passing out. And I believe this is something that you've seen in the past. So we're showing you where those fixed costs come in. It was one of the line items on the exhibit we just looked at. And this is the breakdown of how we get to those totals. So you have their admin fee. That is increasing 5% from last year, so that's our cost of doing business. The network access fee, again, has remained the same since this chart that we put together in the past 5 years. Remains consistent at $6.95. The PBM fee, again, that's your prescription drug access fee to the PBM that we use. It's $1.10. And that's a per contract per month. The individual stop loss fee, and this is why I kind of brought up talking about maybe an additional stop loss increase in what you're, as a self-funded group, are taking responsibility for. At a 35,000 stop loss, that's very low. Just so you know, our fully insured group, although they're not technically stop loss, we do have a point that we put their claim in a stop loss, so they have a max liability for each employee just as you do. Theirs is 75,000. You guys are at 35. So you are well below all of the benchmark, and 35,000 is as low as we go right now for a group your size. So that's just something to consider, and I'll kind of show you some examples of that. The aggregate stop loss, that has not changed, so that's the 125% of your maximum liability, and that's where that maximum liability comes in. So that's your aggregate stop loss, that has not changed. So your total admin fees have changed 20.93% for this year. So as you can see, the majority of that has to do with individual stop loss. So then the expected claims adjustment, based on the claims, where we think they're headed and trending for next year, we're looking at a 7.64% increase. So with that increase and your admin fee increase, we're suggesting the rate adjustments at 13.39% like we talked about earlier. So that takes your total annual premium, and again, how you fund it is different, but it would go from $3.2 million to $3.9 million. Again, these are suggested, not final. Any questions on that?
This is Doug again. When you talked about the individual stop loss, did you say 35,000 was well below benchmarks?
It's well below where we use for our fully insured groups. Again, it's hard to, kind of look at it because they don't pay the extra. They don't pay for a stop loss and they don't self-fund. But yes, 35,000 is well below where we would see our average group.
Okay, I didn't know if that 75,000 was what you were referring to as a benchmark or not. So
No, that's what we use for a fully insured group. When we use our actuarial calculations to figure out their claims, we use the 75,000 as their cutoff for claims above their spec level.
So at what point do we raise the stop loss to make up for the
So if you
200?
want to pass out that
200,000
next
or
exhibit, it's
$200
going
a
to show you a lot of what I've been leading up to and talking about.
Should've
It's
been
the
up now,
Kossuth
should've been
County
here
group
before.
quote summary.
Yep, I have that.
Okay.
I think Roger had a question, at what point is the value of increasing stop loss? And I do, like you said, I think this quote summary will
tell us.
give information.
Yep, I think this is going to help you, Raj.
Okay. 710,000 is a lot too.
But
To absorb into the budget.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of components to that.
Okay, everything's passed out, Michelle.
perfect. So on this 2-page document, if you take a look at it, so we're looking at your current plan. I listed your, stop loss of a $40,000 individual stop loss, a $50,000 individual stop loss. And then, Doug and I spoke about providing some examples of what happens when we increase, deductible and out-of-pocket max with the individual stop loss. What impact does that have? So I've also provided a 1,000, 2,000 deductible, 1,500, 3,000 out-of-pocket max. And again, that 5,000 no stop loss. Then we provided the same deductible and out-of-pocket with a $40,000. Again, the same with a $45,000 individual stop loss. No other plan changes.
Doug, I have a question
So
here.
if you look at the bottom line,
Just, Michelle, can we interrupt quick?
sure.
Kyle Stecker has a question.
Do we have any examples with the same stop loss and changes to the deductible?
We do not. The question was, do we have any examples of the same stop loss and changes to the deductible?
Yes. So if you look at where it says 1,000, 2,000 deductible, 1,500, 3,000 out-of-pocket max, that
That's,
is at your current $35,000 stop loss level.
okay.
Is that what he was asking? I can't really hear him.
Yep,
Yes, that answered that question.
thank you.
Okay. You're welcome.
That's still $600,000.
So if you look at that bottom line, so if you change just what he was talking about, that, brings that annual cost to 4.3 million. Right now, you're at 4.4. So it saves you, $130,000.
Not much.
No.
Mhm.
If you change that deductible and go to a $45,000 spec, there's an additional change, but you're going to need to remember you're going to have to add in $183,000 in the additional claim liability that we talked about. So if you don't change anything with the members contribute, go to a $50,000 individual stop loss, add in $183,000 in additional claims liability, you're still saving $223,000 a year. No plan changes. So I took the little over 4 million, the 4.042 million, and I added in $183,000 extra, came up with 4.226 million. So that's the additional savings of $223,000 over what you have today with no plan changes. If you make the change to the doc lot, or excuse me, just to the deductible and out-of-pocket max, gotta do the math. That will save $127,000 by going to a 1,000, 2,000 deductible and 1,500, 3,000 out-of-pocket max, leaving the stop loss the same. Now again, when you're talking about, switching out-of-pocket max, deductibles, if you go back to the amount of claims that 74, 75% of your members had, they have less than $2,500. So you would affect very, very few members. But you had, 71.8% of the members had no claims or claims paid less than $2,500. So even making a change like that is going to affect, 28% of your members only at the most. So just something to consider if you're talking about plan changes. How many people will that actually affect from a dollar standpoint? Any questions or thoughts on that?
About 11, 12 people that really affects.
Roger just made a statement that 11 or 12 people would be affected.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you guys have an amazing plan. I mean, it is very low deductible, very low out-of-pocket max. So I think, those changes are definitely something to consider, or, bumping up that annual stop loss a little bit. I think there are some thoughts, you guys can have a discussion now. At the end of the day, with what we're looking at from a claim standpoint and the significant number of high dollar claims right now, the 13.3% increase still isn't, yes, it's double digits, but it's not something that I think is crazy, fortunately, based on the claims data. When I saw the claims come in, I was a little worried. I'm not gonna disagree, no one's ever happy with an increase at all. And I can't see your faces, so you're probably all making faces at me.
I don't think we're surprised.
No.
Does anyone have any questions?
I want somebody to have the answer.
So what is her suggestion?
Pardon me,
Does she
Tam?
have a suggestion? What is she suggesting?
Well, we need to look at our own fund
Okay.
and apply the information that Wellmark is providing to us and make our own decision as far as contributions go.
Am I to summarize that we have a possibility, if we didn't do anything, that we would take $710,000 out of our fund balance? If we kept on going at this rate?
I would have to look at some figures.
That's just fuzzy math that I did.
Roger, if you wanna go ahead, or excuse me, Doug, if you wanna pass out, the Prudent RX solution information?
There's some information on pharmacy that Michelle wanted to go over.
Thanks.
So what Doug is passing out is an RX program that is applied by Prudent RX. It's something that we're implementing for all of our fully insured groups. It is an option to our self-funded groups. It has no cost to you as the employer, and there is no additional cost. Actually, it'll be a savings to the member. So once you have that in hand, I'll go through this. I think there's a potential there to save some money. I mean, we have an example that I'm going to show you based on this year's numbers. There's some dollar savings, and then there's some behind the scenes savings, but I also want to explain to you.
Doug, do you wanna tell her we're ready?
I was just going to do that, I wasn't gonna interrupt her. Michelle, we have passed that out.
Okay, perfect. All right, so what Prudent RX does is, there's copay cards out there, and physicians will prescribe maybe the newest, latest, and greatest drug, and people go and you get a copay card, which is great. I mean, it saves people significant amount of money. But what's happening today is if you go in and you're taking, I don't know, one of these prescriptions on the list. Let's say you're taking, Skyrizi. Everybody's heard of Skyrizi. It's an autoimmune drug. And so you get a copay card and your copay is $15. Well, you pay the $15, but what's happening is the cost of that prescription is going towards your out-of-pocket max. And you didn't pay it, you paid $15. So you could hit your out-of-pocket max or your deductible by paying $15. Because the copay card company is picking up the rest of it for you. The member is not. So it's helping with member cost share. It's helping with drug utilization. So copay cards can sometimes lower the preferred drug card or the preferred drug utilization and increase utilization of some of the most costly drugs out there because prescribers will write them knowing there's a copay card and it saves the member money in the long run. Well, this program is doing the same, but it's also saving the company, you as the employer, some money. So if you look at the next slide, right now, clients that have Prudent RX, their specialty trend is going down 12.1%. Without it, it's going up 12%. So it's really completely reversing that trend and taking the specialty trend away, the cost away. It's evening things out. And you can look, it doesn't affect drug utilization. So it isn't keeping people from getting the drugs they need. The utilization trend is following the book of business trend. It's where it needs to be. The brand name drug utilization has remained constant. So companies that didn't have prudence and then implement prudence, the utilization hasn't changed. You know, over quarter one, 2021 to quarter two of 2022, it changed, what, 0.5%? Not a lot of change there. That can cause a change by membership. So it isn't affecting people getting access to the drugs they need, I guess, is what's more important and what I wanted to make sure you understand. So you say, well, how does this program work? It's zero member cost share. So it's actually less of a cost share for members than that copay drug card. What we're doing is they're also setting coinsurance at 30%. So if someone says, I don't want to be part of prudence, which I don't know why they would, but if they did, they're liable for 30% coinsurance across that drug list. And Doug, did you also pass out the drug list with that?
I have not. I will
Okay.
get that passed out quick.
That's okay. That's okay. And it's not critical. Just so you know, you guys will get a copy of that drug list. And it's the seamless member experience. It's no different for the member to fill their prescription. They don't have to mail order. They don't have to go to a special pharmacy. They just have to continue to go to the in-network pharmacy, and there will be no disruption. It will just run through the Prudent RX prescription drug plan versus just their current standard RX program. So here's some examples of what I'm talking about. So if you take a look at, in scenario one, if there's no program versus the Prudent RX, so the drug cost is still the same. I mean, the cost is the cost, $21,600, and that is not unrealistic for some of these specialty drugs. With a copay card, or with no program, the member cost share could be $3,000. With Prudent RX, the member cost share is set at 30% at $6,480. No program, the copay card covers $3,000. With Prudent RX, the copay card covers $6,480. So the member's final liability out of pocket is zero. The member pays zero. But it's where the final client cost comes into play. Without this program, you as the employer would pay $18,600 for this. With Prudent RX savings program, you as the employer would pay $15,120, or a savings of 18.7% just on that one fill. If you look at the second scenario, again, the member cost share would be $900. Member cost share 100% would be $17,658. But again, Prudence picking up that cost share. So the member out of pocket is zero. The final client cost, instead of being $57,000, is $42,000, for a savings of $15,000, or 26%. So it does not affect the member, what they're paying at all. What it is doing, instead of the $3,000 or the $900 going towards, in these two examples, one was $3,000, one was $900, instead of that going towards the members out of pocket and looking like they paid it and they didn't, that's going to a savings for the employer. So the employer is seeing that whole savings instead of is going towards and alleviating that member's cost share that they do not ever pay us in out of their pocket. So for example, if I went to the pharmacy and I picked up Skyrizi and I didn't have Proven RX, you know, my employer didn't have it. Obviously Walmart has it, but if they did, or as you today, if I worked for Kossuth County and I went in to pick up a $10,000 prescription and I had a copay card for it and it cost me $20. And that copay card saved $6,000. It's going to think I paid $6,000 and all of a sudden I set my out-of-pocket max and really I paid $20. So right then, you as the employer start picking up all the claims for that member after that one fill that they paid $20 for, because it looks like they met their out-of-pocket max. But in fact, they did not, because the copay card covered it. So what's happening with Proven RX is you're seeing that savings as the employer. Does that make sense?
It's a difficult concept to grasp, but I think I believe I have that.
I do have
I
a
get
question.
So you guys have a $500 deductible.
Tammy has a question.
I go in, pick up my Skyrizi, I pay $25. The actual cost is, I don't know, it's $8,000 or $9,000. The copay card company today, without proof, is paying that extra. But it looks like at the pharmacy, and what the pharmacy's running through, it looks like the member paid their $500 deductible, is what's happening. But they didn't, they paid $25. So they've met their deductible without paying it, because the copay card paid it for them. Does that help?
Yes, but I have a question.
We do have a question. Tammy has a question here she'll ask.
So does that mean the member is gonna be paying for that difference?
And when
They wouldn't,
So-
Tammy, the question is, would the member be paying the difference? And instead of saying member, let's just say
Individual,
user, Tammy Eden, Doug Miller goes, picks up a prescription. Is there additional cost to us?
well, not for the prescription, I mean,
No.
so, not,
Tammy's going to pay $0.
right, but,
It's actually going to cost Tammy less. Tammy's going to
but
pay
you wouldn't
$0.
have credit
Doug's
for
going to
the
pay $0
pocket.
for these prescriptions.
right, so what I mean
Now, not
is,
every prescription, it's the specialty drugs that are so expensive.
We should.
right, so
And
what
that's
I,
that list that you're going to
Can't
pass
hear.
out. And
Okay,
I can show you how many, go ahead.
Tammy has a question here, a comment.
so,
So go ahead, Tammy.
sorry, trying to clarify, what I mean is not for that prescription, but if before I would have met my deductible with that, even though I shouldn't have, and now I haven't, I'm gonna be paying more towards my deductible than I would have before.
Correct,
Does that make sense?
The question was,
yeah,
does each user then
you would.
actually have to pay dollars in order to get to that deductible?
You would get no credit.
Where,
They would have to actually pay dollars. So their other prescriptions they pick up would go towards their deductible and out of pocket. Their medical claims go towards their deductible and out of pocket.
So technically, it is gonna cost me more.
So, and this is Kyle Stecker, I'll try.
Program where,
Can you hear me if I speak up?
I can now.
Okay, so in other words, to try and maybe clear up the confusion, that would transfer the liability from the individual for that deductible into other medical bills because if their deductible would not be met with those prescriptions, is that correct?
Correct, which right now,
Yeah,
with those prescriptions, they're not actually paying that money anyway. So they would actually have to pay their deductible,
So it is
which they're
gonna-
not doing today.
It will affect deductibles, out of pocket
Right.
costs,
Yes.
actual out of
You'll
pocket
not meet
costs.
you'll meet your deductible at a different point.
Right, exactly.
But it would affect the
Right.
actual out of pocket dollars
Yes.
for the individual
Yes.
because they won't
Right.
get credit for
Right.
the other
The
prescriptions.
point of meeting your deductible was moved,
True, true.
that's my point.
I mean, they probably shouldn't have been getting credit for it in the beginning, but from what
They
they're
are.
used to,
Yeah.
it would be a change.
Right, and really what it is, it's been a loophole in the system
Yep.
with copay cards.
Okay. So is there any restrictions on the drugs that qualify, don't qualify, or anything like that?
Yes, because it's defined by copay cards available, and actually Doug has a list of all the prescription drugs.
Right.
Yep.
But
And
it's,
I have,
That'd be the list you handed out, right, Doug?
Yep.
Okay.
Correct.
So if someone has a drug that's not on this list that they're prescribed, are they still going to have to, pay the full price, or is that gonna be covered?
I guess
no,
it's
they're just
still
gonna pay what
good.
they've always paid.
same.
This is just for
They'll
special.
pay what they've always paid.
Okay.
It
So-
only affects the prescriptions on its list.
Okay, yeah. That's what I was gonna,
It doesn't change anything for any other prescription.
Okay.
So if you need to go in and get amoxicillin, and your amoxicillin normally costs you $8.15, that's what you're going to pay. So what happens is, if you decide to implement the program with your renewal, and I go in, or, you implement this, what's going to happen is Prudent RX is going to send people letters that are involved in this, with a prescription on this list. And they're gonna say, hey, you have a prescription on this list, you're gonna be part of this specialty program, pick up your prescription the same way, nothing changes. They're gonna call them, let them know nothing changes, except you can have the choice to opt out. If you opt out, you pay 30% co-insurance. I don't know why someone would do that. 99.9% of members stay in the program. I don't even know why you would opt out, but there must be one or two people that do. And your cost share is going to be zero when you go get this prescription. They go pick it up, everything the same, nothing changes to the member, when they go get it. It's very simple, very straightforward. The pharmacies are aware of the program,
credit.
it's in there, and they understand how that operates. So again, to the front-facing member, nothing changes when they go to get their prescription.
so you're automatically
Doug.
enrolled in it?
You're automatically enrolled unless you disenroll yourself.
Correct.
And then you'll get a big bold letter saying, that's fine, but here's your 30, you're going to be responsible for 30%.
Michelle, can I use myself as an example to make sure that I understand this? This is Tammy. So I use a drug that's on the list, the specialty drug list. It's about $100,000 a year. So, with 2 infusions. So, what you're saying is, actually it's gonna be $200,000 a year, but anyway, regardless, is I don't pay anything for that drug when I go in. So technically, now, under the way it is under the card, that $100,000, $200,000 would go towards, my deductible. It won't do that anymore, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Because the savings is going to go to the employer versus the savings paying your
So
deductible
I
out
am
of
gonna have to
pocket.
pay,
But that would just be up to the deductible on
Right.
the plan.
and I get that.
Yeah.
That was
As a
just,
member.
Yeah.
Okay.
have Tammy.
And that just goes to our plan deductibles, right? Like currently 500 for singles and 1,000 for family? Or
This would be the pharmacy deductible,
Yeah,
not the medical deductible.
what is our pharmacy deductible right now? 7,500?
Pharmacy deductible's $50
Yeah.
single and $100
Yeah.
family.
For the year or per prescription? Or
For the health plan year,
for the year, okay,
right,
so it's,
with a co-payment of
okay,
10, 20, and 45 depending on the type of prescription.
Isn't there a?
It's not gonna make that big of a
so
limit that
no,
you pick
you'd
up
have,
everything?
you'd have a
Yeah.
few dollars out of
You're out of
pocket.
pocket, once you meet your,
We'd say the county.
the question, Michelle, was with pharmacy, there is an out-of-pocket maximum, is that correct?
I need to look up and see if your out-of-pocket max for your pharmacy feeds your aggregates with your medical out-of-pocket max. I don't know that off the top of my head. I would need to look that up.
I think it does, but I'm not sure.
Well, cause we got,
It goes back to your max out of pocket.
yeah, out of pocket max is 1,000 and 2,000 for single and family, so.
But I think if you reach.
Says
that,
that's
you
the
still
medical.
pay the tier.
Says health out-of-pocket max aggregates with RX out-of-pocket max, it says no.
It doesn't? I thought
I think it's, I
Says
think
no.
you continue to pay your tier if you meet your out of pocket.
okay, I understand now, thank you.
Which page are you on?
Okay, Michelle, I think
These
our
are
questions have been,
The sheet down here,
The
where it
summary.
shows pharmacy benefit plan, health out-of-pocket max aggregates with RX out-of-pocket max, and it says no, so it does not say.
Okay, so it doesn't even own our clearance.
Michelle, did you go over the opportunity there? You have it there, I'm sorry.
That's what I want to go through, and then we will finish up. But this analysis is based on your past claims in 2023, and will show you, a real-life example of the savings that you would have seen last year if you would have had Prudent RX, which it wasn't available last year, so you didn't miss out on the savings, but it is available to you now, for 7/1 at your renewal. So if you pass that out, Doug.
It is passed out.
Okay. So this first slide just tells you what we've been talking about, how it works, how the products are dispensed. The second page is really what I want to start with, or what's called page 3. So out of 120 members, and again, that's contract, you had 5 specialty users, so 5 people that are taking prescriptions off of that current list, with 42 prescriptions, and just that specialty spend was $210,000. Again, this just talks about how that, like the examples we were just talking about, how it doesn't go towards the deductible and out-of-pocket max.
Left says,
And-
answers your question.
If you opt out, there's a flat 30% that you have to pay.
Individuals.
But it's the final page that will actually show you the savings. So the projected generated savings is $33,125. The member savings would be $820 for a savings of 15.7%. Prudent does keep a percentage of that savings. That's how they get paid. And they're very upfront with that. They don't charge you anything to implement the program, but they take a percentage of that savings. So your savings as Kossuth County would be $29,157 or 13.9% of your specialty spend. You know, and that could change more or less depending on the number of medications and users, you know, that add to or leave that list of utilizers, excuse me. But based on the past 12 months, that's where the savings would be. And again, the program costs you nothing to implement and actually saves your members money. You know, at their copay generated funds at the pharmacy.
Michelle, this has nothing to do with the pharmacy that a person goes to. The pharmacies, if they participate in this, or they're aware of it, is that correct?
You are correct. Members will not have to switch pharmacies as long as they're going to an in-network pharmacy, and based on your utilization, it looks like everybody's going in-network.
Okay. Any questions from anyone right away here?
But those 5, you know, as of this chart, that right now there are 5 eligible utilizers. Those 5 people would get letters saying, if you're taking a drug that's on the prudent list, you can keep doing what you're doing. It's just going to be run through a specialty copay card program called Prudent RX. Your copay is going to be 0.
So that would apply to the current year of 2024, not, does it start right now? I guess
No,
my question is,
at the renewal.
at the renewal?
Yeah, she said
Yeah.
7/1.
Okay,
To start 7/1, correct,
It was not available last year.
correct. So we just started the program with our 1/1/2024 renewal.
Is there any more information to pass out here, Doug, or?
That's all the information that Michelle
Okay,
had sent
That is
you.
it.
any,
And I know I dumped a lot of information on you guys today, and I apologize, but there were a lot of things I wanted to make sure I shared.
no, that's, we gotta get through.
Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
If we have any other questions, Michelle, we will be contacting you.
Yep,
Sounds great, and we will be back in touch with final numbers, like I said, beginning of April.
Okay, very good. Thank you, you have a good day.
Thanks, you guys too.
Thank you.
I forgot to ask Michelle, what's the weather like in Des Moines, or Central Iowa?
It's getting icy out. I went outside a little bit this morning, and my driveway's pretty slick.
Okay, very good, thank you.
A little ice down here. You're welcome, thank you.
Have a good day.
Thank you.
is everyone running out to lunch right away, or?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay,
I'll be at Care Connections then,
Okay.
so I will have to leave around 3:10-ish. Pick up the